Bitcoin price is still boring and going sideways, but there are three key potentially macro or mid-macro items that have triggered this week, even in light of Bitcoin price almost doing nothing. And I don't think that you're going to see another channel show you the significance of that despite sideways price action and the potential ramifications that it could have for crypto / Bitcoin price. And I'll give you a hint. Two are bearish. One is exceptionally bullish. And you aren't going to see any other video or channel out there covering these three together, particular to boring sideways action. So what triggers could this be? That's what we're going to cover on the Bitcoin portion of this live stream. So let's go get some friggin' Bitcoin. Should we start off with the bullish one? No, let's save the bullish one for last. And it is pretty, that is something that you will not find anywhere else because it's going to be using a chart that I created. It's not very difficult to create. You can copy it if you wish, but you will not find it anywhere else. Sideways price action, zooming out on the daily here, simply to get a scope. Let me go to a cleaner chart and let me set the context for what I'm about to say. Bitcoin has been in about 140 days consolidation. So this is the macro outlook. Just where are we right now? You know, have you ever gone to a state park or just somewhere where it has map for it, and you walk up to it and it's an outside map and it says you are here with a star? Okay, that's what we're doing right now. We are here compared to the 69K top. This is a move of momentum. Mostly, this is a bullish, very volatile consolidation. And you can see that the most volatile consolidation period is the first one after the top for a darn good reason. Because people were still believing, hey, this is a macro higher low to this macro higher low, and the week was still in an uptrend. Like this was the line in the sand for the week. And that's why this dumped so hard, because the week, I think, finally succumbed to being in a downtrend at that time. I think that's where it happened. But regardless, this was a volatile consolidation period. Then the next one became extremely, just very flat. This was even less volatile and more boring. But it was actually wicked difficult to trade there. If you zoom into the 1 hour candles, it was wild. The first half of this, for me, I traded it very, very well. But since about that point, like I got to the point where, like, you know what? It's better to trade altcoins because you're just competing against highly sophisticated bots that are whipping around Bitcoin price because no one else is trading it from a percentage, all things relative. The vast majority of all trading volume, not transaction volume, trading volume is highly sophisticated and likely high volume, high frequency trading algos. So we are in after, let's say, three main consolidation periods. First one was aggressive. The second was smaller and less aggressive. And this one is going sideways. And we're 140 days into it. So what are some triggers that have happened? First off, I'm going to use SPX to show you this. In a couple of ways. The first trigger is technically outside of Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been following SPX to an extremely strong correlation, positive correlation, right? So one trigger that has recently happened is in the trend that after a rally, you make lower lows. After a rally, you make lower lows. After a rally, you make lower lows. This was in a very big rally, but what happened? Here was the previous low, made new lows. Rally, the recent trigger here happened on the previous day, so just yesterday, on that very bearish candle during FOMC, where big money / smart money market makers, the big bad days, right? However we want to label these people with a lot of money, probably hedge funds, right? But they gave up the hopes that in U.S. monetary policy, that Jerome Powell, the Fed chair, would pivot. Therefore, the party's back on, and we could party to the upside, which the stock market has been almost purely up over the last 12 years. It's a drug. People are going through withdrawal symptoms. So this whole time since, was it January? I don't know what this is, but people biting their nails, withdrawal symptoms, right? So since January, the market cycle top, people have still, instead of like just accepting, I'm never going to be able to have nicotine again, or whatever, pick your vice. That's addictive, pharmacologically and molecularly. People have been sitting there not accepting that they're never going to do it again. They're hoping, okay, I'm going to get a cigarette like now, right? And now is the time where they just gave up that hope. Very significant, clear point. It's outside of Bitcoin, but it is a trigger for Bitcoin because Bitcoin has been trading with this chart to an extremely strong degree. Does that make sense? That's the first thing that's very bearish, okay? The third thing I'm going to cover is very bullish. All right, so that is a macro bearish type of deal. And if you mix that with the fact that, so I did the context first on purpose. If you mix that with the fact that this 140-day consolidation is, I think, the longest one of all the consolidations of this bear market. Yeah, it's the longest consolidation period of the whole bear market. That means it's mature. It's got to go somewhere. It's going to pick a direction, right? And it's going to move. And we just had that trigger happen. What do you think? It's a big trigger because it's got to go somewhere. Like now, right? Maybe not today or tomorrow, but November, December, it's got to go somewhere, and it will. That's trigger number one. Trigger number two is not so macro. Trigger number two is something I've been discussing since Monday or even last week. I can't remember what day it was, but we have a, I guess, a pivot point, which could end up stimulating or being the very beginning of a macro or mid-macro pivot. Which in this case, because this has been going sideways, it means not go sideways. It breaks out. And so to be more, I guess, to take a microscope, so we're taking a magnifying glass to the first trigger that I showed you, right? This is technically a different one, but in reality, we're just trying to pick a very finite point on when does this all begin? Like, when is the beginning of it happening, right? Of this next move down. We definitely, we will not know until it becomes hindsight bias, which means we won't really know until after Bitcoin really moves, right? Then you'll look back and say, okay, this is where we could have known, and this is where the move actually began. And in hindsight, it started here. So therefore, I can now apply this to the future and make this as a guess. All right. But anyway, so this point right here is the magic line in the sand based off weekly candles. I'm not going to go back over it. You can go to my previous Bitcoin videos from the same week. Not during live shows, just the standalone recorded videos about how I set up these lines and why they're so important and why I felt that if Bitcoin went below this bottom line, even for a 1 minute candle wick, I'm kind of exaggerating, maybe accept that, but even for a 1 minute candle wick, which is what I've been saying, if it happens on not Wednesday during FOMC, which FOMC bounced off this, right? So if it happens after FOMC, then the direction for this week is going to be red, right? And if it is red, this could be this is the teeter-totter point where a pullback could evolve into a reversal. Therefore, new lows are getting ready to happen. Or the current lows of 18.2 around the bottom of this triangle back over here, the 100 that most people are, have been staring at. Either or. A reversal where this is broken or at least hit again down here. And this is kind of my line in the sand for that. Before I had my lines here, I want to clear up confusion that I very easily could have caused, because I forgot to explain one thing. Before I had these lines here, it was it was last week. So I hadn't talked about these lines yet, but Bitcoin was up here. I said around this time, throughout the next week or so, Bitcoin can easily come all the way down to 19.2 to this breakout, and on the daily scale be in an uptrend. So it could come all the way back down here, and it would be the trend of the daily would still be good because it's above this point here. As long as it stays above technically 1900, it is in an uptrend. And that is bullish. In addition to that, that pullback would be extra healthy because at the time it would have been coming down to test the top of the triangle, which technically it still would be. So it'd be killing two birds with one stone. A deep pullback that helps reset a bunch of indicators so that the next push up can get above this high, and then it would go to my next origin line. Then the target would very, very, very clearly be, this top origin line. Because it aligns with so much stuff from horizontals back here and all that stuff, right? I said that the week before. So is that still the case? It technically, all that is still accurate. However, when you are, you know how a teacher, back when you were in school, if you're still in school, on a test, let's say there are 10 problems, the first 4 are multiple choice, and then the next 6 are word problems, but the last of them, the 10th question, is like the one that's going to take you 30 minutes, and the rest of the test only takes this, right? And so it has more value to it. It's weighted heavier. Okay? Like the problems are weighted, right? So it's a 100 point test. Each multiple choice is only worth 2. The word problems are worth 10 apiece, and the last one's worth 30, for example, right? Does that make sense? So with that same thought process, yes, it's still accurate that is still in play, a pullback down to here, but because of recent development and the development of these, the importance of these lines, I'm giving a less weight to that. At the beginning of this move, it was the idea that a pullback down to 19.2, it would still be bullish. The weight of that was very heavy, actually. Like, even if it came down, it was very probable. So the probabilities were still good that would create, you would not be on lower high watch. After it, if it bounced from there, you would fully be expecting at that time, from a probabilistic standpoint, that it would go past these highs. If you got a reaction, if it did come down here and got a reaction. But now, throughout this week, these two very important lines have formed, and I've covered why, so I'm not going to, because it would take a while to explain. You have to watch my previous videos. This line has developed, it's closed below, therefore this is now weighted differently. And that is confusion I could have created with saying two contrarian things within about a 10-day period or so. Okay, now the thing that is honestly exceptionally bullish, and I have been kind of like a bear market person since an appropriate time to be bearish. But since before the common population was accepting it's in a bear market and their money is not going to go, that Cardano's not going to $12 and shit like that. It was way before then. I was getting made fun of and all that stuff for being bearish. But so I've been bearish fairly early, right? Fairly early. I wasn't the earliest, but I was early enough to be made fun of. Like saying, if you're interested in Solana, don't buy it till it's $30 back when it was like $150, right? And I made a video on that and all that. All right. And if you haven't watched that, go to my channel and type in just perfect. Just type in the word perfect, searching among my videos only, and it's the one that says Solana. Perfect Solana prediction or whatever. Watch that if you're new. It's 90 seconds long or something. All right. However, so with that, I've been early bear. I've been very loud about it and mostly right about it because it's obvious, like cross bad, right? I even made videos with music and all that shit. So even with that, I am going to say that the probabilities that the bottom is in, that probability is getting a lot better, and it's getting better quickly, very quickly. It has not gotten to past 50% likely yet, so it's not probable. That's the key word. It is not better than a coin flip yet. However, in my opinion, the chance that the bottom being in, let's say a month and a half ago was 10%, maybe 15. 3 weeks ago, I came on and said, man, this happened. I think it might be 20%. At this point, it might be closer to 30. All right. And so I'm getting ready to show you something that you will not see anywhere else because I made the chart, but it's clear as day. So let's go get it. Sorry for the backstory, but hopefully, you see that as somebody who's been a loud bear, I'm still saying this. Like, this is legit stuff. All right. This is also a 140-day consolidation period, but we don't know what we're looking at outside of something that is influenced off the price of Bitcoin movement, because it's also consolidating the same time frame, right? And it kind of looks similar. This is Bitcoin versus SPX. Or no, actually, US 500 so it's the S&P 500 futures, and I use that because there are more candles. It's traded more hours, right? So there's more data. Fun fact: Bitcoin has literally been traded longer than the entire history of the S&P 500. Not longer than the S&P 500 futures, but there have been more 1 hour candles on Bitcoin than there has been in the entire history of the S&P 500. And when I heard somebody say that, I actually Googled it. And it was right. I didn't believe that statement. I was like, this person's full of shit. There's no way. But all the times it closes and Bitcoin doesn't in 13 years, it's true. All right. Anyway, so I used it versus the US 500, which is the futures chart. And the way I developed this chart is I made it slightly exaggerate itself. So if you are somebody who's edited something on Photoshop or whatever, just any platform where there's color, it's similar to increasing the contrast or the saturation on the picture. So this chart increases the saturation level or the contrast. It exaggerates it just like that. All right. So what we're looking at here is Bitcoin was in a 60-day uptrend, very aggressively so, and it came in form of Bitcoin price going sideways as the stock market went down. So Bitcoin actually didn't go up really during this time. This was Bitcoin holding strong sideways as stocks went down. And this chart went up because of that, because Bitcoin was strongly outperforming the stock market, which was making new low after new low after new low since June, right? So get an idea of this. So that consolidation period started about here. Now, roughly when I think Bitcoin hit 17.5 at about this point. So since this point, that uptrend, 60-day uptrend happened here. Bitcoin created no new lows and did not go down this aggressively at all for that 60-day time frame. It essentially stayed flat. And that's why the chart went up. Okay, so that's what we're staring at. Now, why is this bullish? There is going to be a threshold on this chart that in the end is the exact horizontal. It's probably going to be a horizontal. It might be something like the weekly 21 or something, but I think it's going to be horizontal. You won't know it until hindsight bias, until it's already said and over, then you look back to the data. You won't know, but you can make guesses that there will be a horizontal on this chart that indicates this is when Bitcoin is going to go up, even if the stock market continues going down, because it's outperforming it so well. It doesn't even matter. And I think that this horizontal right here, even though I'm not, like, I have this more for data so you can visualize stuff, but I aligned it with the top of the formation. This area right here. Okay? It might be this horizontal. That is that line where Bitcoin goes up regardless. And so let's dive in to see what's happened recently. This is a day. I want to go to the 4-hour chart. Can I still see everything on the 4? Yeah, so this is a 4-hour chart. You can still see it all. 60-day uptrend as stock market just melted after a big-ass bear market rally. A really big one. Bitcoin stays strong going sideways. The trend right here, something changed right here because the trend became actually a confirmed downtrend. High. Well, actually, this is a lower high. It actually started right here. So on this candle right there, confirmed this as a downtrend. So you have a high, higher low. So higher high, higher low. Higher high, lower low. At this point, it became a no trend, which isn't a death sentence, but it was a no trend. Because to have a trend, you have to have both. You either have to have lower low and lower high, or you have to have higher high and higher low simultaneously at all times. And when you only have one of two, it is a no trend. On this candle right here, so let me zoom into this part. This candle here confirmed that this was a local high, which means that it's a lower high to this one, which confirmed a daily downtrend. Even though I'm on the 4-hour chart, but I just like you can see more information here. And the trend reversed. However, it found support on this trend line. So for some reason, this works like a normal chart. As weird as it sounds, it does, right? And not only did it do this, but it's getting above a line that this line right here, I think would be harder to get over than this line. So because this big resistance has been taken out, and rather like look at the velocity. It didn't even look at this. Oop, I don't want to move that. There we go. It only stutter stepped in there for 11 hours. And it was among the most bullish formations possible at a major resistance. Like you literally can't consolidate at a resistance in a fashion more bullish than that. You can't. Well, yeah, I guess there is. Yeah, I guess you could. You could go past it, land on it, and use it as support. But I guess I did say you can't consolidate under resistance. So under that specific way I said it, you cannot consolidate under resistance in any way more bullish than this. You cannot. And so it got above a very difficult horizontal rather easily. And this next horizontal is going to be easier to pass. Are we following my logic so far? But after this horizontal, what's next? The top horizontal. Does it have a long way to go? Sure, it does. It's not quite there yet. But breaking it down like this threshold that just happened, getting past here, that is a macro, I wouldn't say a change, but that is significant threshold to pass on a macro scale. It did not flip the chances better than 50% that the bottom's in, but it took it from like 1 in 5 chances to 1 in 3, I think, because it's going to be easier to get over this one. And then the last one you have to get over is the final frontier. When I think at that level, once the highest one gets passed, I think that the probabilities then are clearly in favor that the bottom's in. Does it guarantee it? No, absolutely not. There are no guarantees. But I would say that the bottom's likely in at that point if it gets above it. Okay. Now, the exact moment it does get above it, obviously I'll be looking for a failure pattern. So I wouldn't say it's super probable until it's used as support and gets over its punch high, right? Getting above it. But still, in general, once it shows that this is support, I mean, the bottom is very, very, very likely in. And this is a massive, massive threshold to have crossed. Therefore, it's extremely significant on a macro scale. And those are your 3 things that have happened that are super significant in Bitcoin price. Even though price is being super boring, still going sideways, boring everybody to death. And hopefully you found this information useful. I'm going to move on to